Thank you for seeing me. I've been having the same bad dream every night for the past 8 months. It's exhausting. I can't sleep. I can't focus. Starting to feel like I'm losing my mind. I drove here from out of state because I heard you're the best there is at dealing with dreams and nightmares. I'm really hoping you can help me make it stop.
Can you describe the dream for me?
Yes. Okay, so the first thing I remember, I'm back in the house I grew up in. It's late on Christmas Eve, and I'm spying on Santa Claus as he's getting ready to leave us toys. My dad used to dress up as Santa every year and put all our presents under the tree. My little brother and I would sneak out of our rooms and spy on him. I always was a bit scared we'd get caught, but this time it's different. It isn't my dad, it's the real Santa Claus, so I'm way more scared than normal. For some reason, I'm watching him through some kind of glass or screen, so I feel a little safer. I know how silly that sounds, but it's a dream, so none of it makes any sense. So I'm hiding there, watching Santa do his thing when I feel a chill come over me. Suddenly I hear a bear wrestling in the bushes. I don't know why there's bushes inside my house, but again, it's a dream. And this startles me. Santa hears it too and starts looking around for it, like frantically, like it scares him even more than it does me. Then the worst part happens. Santa and I, we spot the bear at the same time, and I get completely overwhelmed with terror. Seeing the bear scares me more than anything ever has or ever should. And I wake up like just so agitated that my heart is racing and I can't go back to sleep. It is always the same dream. I don't know why I'm having it. I just want it to stop.
Let's start connecting some of the dots with what you've told me. Mm-hmm. I'll explain how this works. I've made a list of all the topics you mentioned in your dream. For example, you mentioned both fear and your father. If I ask you about these together, I want you to tell me whatever comes to your mind first. It might be a time when you were afraid of your father, or a fear he had that you remember, or even someone you know who was very afraid of your father. The key here is to speak freely about what you feel has the strongest connection in your mind. If other topics come up while we're talking, I'll add those to our list. This approach will help peel back the layers of your dream. By exploring these connections, we aim to uncover what your subconscious might be trying to communicate. Through this technique, we'll gradually get to the root of these nightmares. Eventually, that will lead us to insights we need, and you can start sleeping peacefully again.
I can't think of any deep, meaningful connections between Santa Claus and a bear. But they do pop up together in some pretty random places, like they're both in a bunch of old Coca-Cola commercials where Santa Claus shares a Coke with some polar bears. I'm sure that has nothing to do with my dream. I don't remember what the bear in my dream looked like, but I don't think it was a polar bear. Plus, Santa got terrified when he saw it. the two of them were not going to share a soda. So, yeah, no significant association comes to mind. Just a few quirky overlaps in pop culture. All right, so picture this. Me, a little kid, peeking around the corner on Christmas Eve, watching my dad dress up as Santa. He's got the whole getup, red suit, white beard, the works, and he's putting out presents, acting like he has no idea I'm spying on him. And I'm just there, just trying to stifle giggles and totally buying into all the magic of it. But now I just look back and I wonder, why do parents have to go to such lengths to deceive their kids? It's just wild, right? The whole charade just to believe in this mythical guy who breaks into houses to leave gifts. It's what's the end game here? To preserve some fleeting sense of wonder? I mean, I don't know, maybe it's them wanting to relive a piece of their own childhood magic through us. I mean, anyway, the whole thing eventually crumbles when you find Dad's Santa suit stored in the closet next to a vacuum. All right, let's talk about fear in Santa Claus. Of all the mythical creatures I could dream about, I just don't get why I'd be afraid of Santa Claus. I mean, seriously. Santa is one of the only nice mythical creatures out there. The guy brings presents, eats cookies, and spreads joy. I mean, what is there to be scared of? Now, if I were walking around my house and saw Cthulhu or a Hydra, I'd totally get being scared. I mean, those are the kind of creatures that give you nightmares. But Santa Claus just doesn't make any sense to me. I can't wrap my head around why my brain would pick him to be the scary one in my dreams. My mom loved taking me to see Santa every year, usually right after Thanksgiving. She'd dress me up in some kind of cute festive outfit. And we'd get to the mall, and there'd be this massive line of kids, and all squirming and excited. And she'd chat with me, telling me how I should ask Santa for what I really wanted and not to be shy. And when it was finally my turn, I'd climb up onto Santa's lap, feeling this mixture of awe and slight fear. Yeah, there's something a little intimidating about being face to face with this larger than life figure who supposedly knows if you've been naughty or nice all year. Yeah. I used to love toys as a kid, but now they just don't appeal to me anymore. It's not just because I'm an adult. I almost resent the whole concept for some reason. I don't know. Maybe I'm just becoming cranky as I get older. Yeah. When I think about my mother and Santa, one of the first things that comes to mind is how she used to take me to the mall to sit on Santa's lap when I was a kid. And then, well, there's also that song, I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus. Honestly, it's just such a weird song when you think about it. As a kid, I remember being really confused by it. Why is this kid spying on his mom, and why is Santa involved in this, bizarre scenario? The whole idea was kind of strange. It's one of those creepy songs that does not quite make sense, but it's become such a part of the Christmas culture that you just roll with it. Oh, Santa's not just a mythical creature. He is an overpowered one. He delivers presents to every house in one night, which puts him in speedster territory. No wonder he needs all those cookies, right? He's burning through calories faster than the Flash. He is also immortal, never ages, never dies, just keeps going year after year in the same outfit like a superhero. But the real game breaker is the naughty or nice list. He tracks the moral behavior of every kid on Earth. That has to be either omniscience or global telepathy. Even the most powerful telepaths in all of fiction can't read minds on a global scale. I'd say Santa's Omega level for sure. Oh, this one's a classic. So we were all out in the yard one summer having a barbecue. Yeah, it was one of those perfect nights, warm, clear sky, everyone's laughing, having a great time. Suddenly, my dad's face goes pale and he shouts, "Everybody into the house, now!" We all froze for a second and then we started scrambling for the door. He was like yelling something about a bear in the yard. And the adrenaline kicked in and we all rushed into the house, locking the door behind us. My heart was like, it was pounding, thinking we just narrowly escaped a bear attack. It turns out what he thought was a bear was actually this big dog. It was a huge dog, but I don't know. The tension broke. We all burst out laughing. My dad tried to play it off, saying, "Oh yeah, it's better to be safe than sorry." But no, we didn't let him off the hook. Yeah, we busted him for it for weeks afterwards. Yeah, I am kind of afraid of bears. I mean, who wouldn't be? They're these massive, powerful creatures that could just swipe you away with one paw. I remember seeing a bear up close once at a zoo. Even behind the glass, it was intimidating. Hear all these stories about people encountering bears in the wild, and they're always terrifying. So yeah, I'm definitely a little wary of bears, but no more than anyone else. I have a pretty vivid memory related to bears from when I was a kid. So my school was right near some woods, so every once in a while they'd make an announcement over the PA system that recess would be indoors because a bear had been spotted nearby. And most of the other kids hated it when it happened. I mean, they'd groan and complain about not getting to play outside. But honestly, I kind of liked it. It was usually too cold outside anyway, and indoor recess meant we could play games or read, which, I preferred anyway. When I think of schools and Santa, there isn't much correlation between the two. I mean, school was always closed for about 2 weeks around Christmas, so Santa was more of a home thing. To me, holidays in general just meant a break from school. When I was young, it wasn't about the festivities as much as it was about getting some time off from classes and homework. Bye, school. I had a teddy bear when I was very young. His name was Mr. Fuzzy. He was a soft brown bear with a red bow tie, and I took care of him like he was my child. I would tuck him into bed with me every night, make sure he was comfortable, and even talk to him about my day. He went everywhere with me. Car rides, family trips, you name it. Ride or die. I already told you about those bear scares at school, right? When they'd cancel recess because a bear was spotted nearby? I mean, honestly, there wasn't much more of a connection between bears and school. We never even saw the bear. For me, it was just an excuse to stay indoors where it was warm. When I think about my mother and bears, I mostly think of how much she loved zoos. She used to take me all the time when I was a kid, and most of them had bear exhibits. Zoos are actually the only place I've seen a bear other than on TV. There are quite a few mythical creatures tied to bears. Bugbears, yetis, druids. There's too many to name. As for the bear in my dream, I don't remember what it looks like, so it could be anything from a yeti to a panda. I always wake up the instant I see it, so I never get a good look at it. You know, I was never really afraid of my dad. He wasn't one of those stereotypical scary dads you see in movies or hear about from friends. He was more like this, big comforting presence. A few of my friends talked about their dads like they were scary. Oh, my college roommate was always nervous around hers. But not in the way you might think. He was actually pretty nice. It wasn't fear of him as a person. I think she was just obsessed with earning his approval. Yeah, she cared, probably to an unhealthy degree, about what he thought of her. It always felt a little out of character because she was so pragmatic about everything else. But then again, I think he might have been pretty rich, so maybe part of it was about not wanting to get cut off or left out of the will. I'm not really sure if Santa has any actual friends. The elves always seemed more like employees, busy in the workshop, making toys. The reindeer, too, seemed more like co-workers and pals, just doing their job at pulling the sleigh. And sure, yeah, there's Mrs. Claus, but it always seemed like just the two of them up there in the North Pole. Yeah, I doubt that they had a very big social circle. It's hard to imagine Santa hosting a dinner party with anyone other than the elves and the reindeer, who, would probably still be talking shop the whole time. So, yeah, the idea of Santa having friends feels wrong. When I think of friends and bears, I can't help but recall how anytime any of my friends or I saw some rustling in the bushes, our first thought was always that it could be a bear. Bears were just ingrained into us as a symbol of unknown danger from the time we were kids. Our school would cancel outdoor recess anytime someone saw the slightest movement in the woods, even though there was at most a 1% chance it was actually a bear. It was almost a reflex that anything moved in the bushes had to be a bear. And in reality, I've never once seen a bear in real life outside of a zoo. My dad was always a great dad. He was also pretty nerdy, which made growing up with him a lot of fun in its own unique way. We always had the latest game consoles and gadgets in the house. He loved technology, and he was always excited to share it with us. He wasn't the type of dad who could fix a car himself or take me fishing. In fact, no, I remember one time when we had a flat tire and the two of us spent an hour trying to change it before giving up and just calling roadside assistance. But, yeah, that's fine. Being able to change a tire isn't what makes someone a good dad. My dad definitely had some toys of his own. He was a big fan of TV and movies and was especially obsessed with the original Star Trek series. He even owned several props from the show, including Leonard Nimoy's tricorder and Walter Koenig's phaser. Those props were like sacred artifacts in our home. He always said we couldn't touch them because they were collector's items, but I knew they were really just Dad's very expensive toys. My younger brother Tommy always tried to talk me into letting him play with them whenever we were left at home alone. I started telling him it was too dangerous because they were real and actually worked. He was only 5, so he believed me. It's funny. I always kind of resented it when my parents told me that kind of lie, but as soon as I was left in charge of my brother, I did the same thing to him. I'm a little disappointed in myself for that. When I think of TV and movies and Santa, the first things that come to mind are those classic holiday movies like Frosty the Snowman and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Yeah. Watching them as a kid, it was a holiday tradition in our house. There's something so nostalgic about those old stop-motion animations. Yeah, I've always had mixed feelings about Frosty the Snowman, though. It's a classic. I loved watching it as a kid, but that magic hat always freaked me out a bit. I couldn't help but wonder what would happen if they put it on something else, like a mannequin. Would it come to life too? And what if they made a dog? Dog out of snow? I don't know. Instead of a snowman, would we have a snow dog running around? I don't know. I tend to think of weird things like that. Sorry. When I think of TV shows and movies and bears, 2 very different characters come to mind. Yogi Bear and Cocaine Bear. Hear me out. I watched Yogi as a kid. I like how they had him and Boo Boo trying to steal picnic baskets instead of trying to eat people. That is a nice way to make bears more family friendly. And then there's Cocaine Bear. Now, that's a completely different take on bears. I saw it a few years ago. I'd say it was crazy enough to give me nightmares, but weirdly, even though I never see the bear in my dream, I just get this strong feeling that it's closer to Yogi or Boo Boo than it is to Cocaine Bear. I don't really understand why I get so afraid when I see it. Seriously, when I spot this bear in my dream, I feel the most intense terror I've ever felt in my life. It's really bad. Oh, that's an easy one. My dad was a huge Trekkie and took me to my first Star Trek convention. It was in Philadelphia, and it was also the first time I ever traveled outside of the immediate area, at least that I can remember. And it was also the first time I've ever been in a place where I had a shared interest with everybody else. It was awesome. I loved seeing the people walking around, dressed up in their Starfleet uniforms. We also got to watch The Trouble with Tribbles in a room packed full of other Trekkies. And then, topping the night off, we got to see William Shatner take the stage and give a talk that was surprisingly funny. There was this whole floor dedicated to selling Star Trek merchandise, but we didn't buy much there. Dad said all the really good stuff was sold at the live auction. He ended up buying a prop phaser from the original series. I don't remember how much he paid for it, but I remember my mom wasn't too pleased about it when we told her about it. When I think of Santa and travel, well, the logistics of him delivering presents all over the world in one night never made any sense to me. Who came up with this stuff? It is baffling that we tell our kids these elaborate stories that don't even have a shred of plausibility. I mean, flying reindeer, a sleigh that defies the laws of physics, and a guy who somehow fits down chimneys. How did this become such a commonly accepted tradition? It's one of those things that the more you think about it, the less sense it makes. Yes, it's a story we all grow up with and pass on, even though it's completely outlandish. I don't know. When I think of travel and a bear, I can't help but remember this road trip my mom took me on. We went to this tiny zoo in some small town nobody's ever heard of because they had a new panda exhibit. The trip went so badly, it was almost funny. I mean, sure, the zoo did have pandas, but almost every other animal they had were animals people commonly keep as pets, like snakes, ferrets, and rabbits. It was like we drove all that way just to visit a glorified pet store. And to top it off, it was the middle of winter, so the zoo was freezing. We were bundled up like we were trekking through the Arctic and yet still freezing. Santa's pets? Well, everybody knows about his reindeer, right? But here's the thing. Should they really be called reindeer? Real reindeer don't have magical powers, they can't fly, and they definitely don't haul around a sleigh full of presents at light speed. So clearly, these are some sort of mythical creatures, just like Santa himself. I think they deserve their own name. Think about it. If you encountered a magic flying reindeer that wasn't one of Santa's, what would you call it? It's like finding a unicorn and calling it a magical horse. It just doesn't capture the essence, you know? Yeah. I mean, these creatures are doing something. They're doing some serious work. One night a year, and I think they should get a little more recognition than just being lumped in with a regular reindeer. Let's give credit where credit's due, okay? Ugh, I don't know anyone who has a pet bear. I mean, seriously, who looks at a giant clawed beast and thinks, yeah, I want that lounging around my living room? I did have a teddy bear once. That was a big deal when I was little, like 5. Mr. Fuzzy was his name, and he went everywhere with me. Yeah, but let's be real. I'm not 5 anymore, and Mr. Fuzzy's days of being my constant companion are long gone. It's funny how something so important to you as a kid can just fade into the background as you grow up. Kind of like those childhood fears about monsters under the bed. Now the only monsters I worry about are the ones sending me emails on my day off. When I think of my father in school, yeah, that's a pretty interesting mix. He always told us we should own our paths in life. He told us that we could even drop out of school if we wanted to, but only if we had a solid life plan that didn't require a high school diploma. He made it very clear that there are careers where it doesn't matter and ones where it does. Yeah, my brother Tommy tried to take him up on that. He told our dad he wanted to be a truck driver when he grew up, so he should just drop out of school. My dad didn't argue. Yeah. Instead, he convinced Tommy that he'd be much happier as an airline pilot. And it worked like a charm. Tommy got hooked on the idea of flying planes, which, requires a college degree, so he gave up on the whole dropping out of school idea and, started focusing on his grades. Yeah. When I was growing up, I didn't really think my father had any friends. I had a ton of uncles, so I thought he came from a really big family. It wasn't until I was older that I realized it was just a common thing in our area for parents to refer to their friends as aunt or uncle when talking to their kids. It got pretty confusing. Apparently, a lot of parents in my area did that for some reason. I remember in first grade, everyone at school thought they were cousins with about a third of the class because of it. It's one of those weird lies parents tell their kids. I never understood why that's so common. Like, why did it end up being tradition to miseducate your kids in a very specific way when they're young? Like, what's the point of lying to your kids about Santa or the Tooth Fairy? I just don't get it. You want to hear about my parents? Well, my parents had 2 kids, me and my much younger brother, Tommy. Our family dynamic changed drastically when my mother died of cancer when I was still a kid. Losing her was incredibly hard on all of us. After her death, I became the only older female adult in Tommy's life, so I took on a role that was part older sister, part parent. My dad worked a lot to provide for us, which meant I was left looking after Tommy pretty often. It wasn't always easy, yeah, but I was all he had, so I did my best to look out for him. Our dad worked a lot, but he was there for us as much as possible. He made sure we had everything we needed, and yeah, he spent time with us whenever he could. When I think about my father and travel, the first thing that comes to mind is how much we love going to conventions together. Yeah, it was our special thing, just me and him. My mom was never really into that stuff, so it was the perfect father-daughter bonding time. We'd pack up and head out to all sorts of conventions, Comic-Con, Star Trek conventions, you name it. He got me hooked. And now I still go to Comic-Con every year. Santa Claus has popped up in a ton of comics over the years. In the X-Men, there's actually a version of Santa who's one of the most powerful mutants. I always thought that was a cool twist. And then there's that other comic where someone hires Deadpool to kill Santa. That one was just weird, but hey, it's Deadpool, so what do you expect? There used to be a Care Bears comic book. I don't know anything about it, honestly. The only reason I even know about it is because I had an issue when I was young. I don't know where I got it. I don't remember much about it. I don't remember what the bear in my dream looked like, but it better not have been a Care Bear. Being scared of Santa Claus is bad enough, but being terrified of a Care Bear? That would just be too much. My dad was a huge casual fan of comic books. He loved comic book-based movies, TV shows, and cartoons. He took me to some smaller comic book conventions a few times, and we just had a blast. He did everything except read the actual comic books. I don't even think he owned any. That's more my thing. For him, he just loved the worlds and somehow knew a lot about the major storylines from the comics. Yeah, but I've never seen him read an actual comic book, even once. My father once bought us a robot dog. We had to get rid of our real dogs because my younger brother Tommy turned out to be allergic. Yeah, it was a really sad day when we had to let him go, but my dad thought that a robot dog would be a great substitute. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. This thing was like hilariously bad. I mean, it was a long time ago, and robots and computers weren't nearly as advanced as they are today. The robot dog would bark at random times, and its mechanical legs, barely moved. It had this weird habit of just spinning in circles. It was like a toy that couldn't decide if it was broken or just possessed. We spent more time laughing at it than actually playing with it. Yeah, it was like watching a low-budget sci-fi movie. Like, it was entertaining, but for all the wrong reasons. I bet a robot dog today would be way more fun to have around. Technology has come a very long way since then. My dad was a huge fan of anything fantasy related. Growing up, our house was filled with books and movies about all sorts of mythical creatures. One of his favorites was Bigfoot. He loved to pretend Bigfoot was real and that he knew him. It was this running joke for him, always claiming he met up with Bigfoot after work or that they went fishing together. As much as he found it hilarious, I hated it when my parents told lies like that. I mean, I felt the same way about Santa Claus. I just don't get why parents lie to their kids like that. Looking back, yeah, I had a few childhood fears that really stuck with me. One of the big ones was the dark. Classic, right? I'd lie in bed, staring at the shadows, convinced that monsters were lurking just out of sight. My dad got me this nightlight shaped like a spaceship, and it helped a bit, but no, I'd still pull the covers over my head, thinking they were a magical shield or something. Oh, another one of my weirdest fears was quicksand. Yeah, I blame cartoons and older TV shows for that one. They kind of made it seem like surviving quicksand was this essential life skill everyone needed. Like you could just stumble into a pit of quicksand any day. No, I was genuinely worried that I'd run into quicksand on the playground or something. There were definitely some toys that freaked me out as a kid. One that stands out is, this old-fashioned porcelain doll my grandmother gave me. It had these glassy eyes that seemed to follow you around the room, and like this eerie, almost lifelike face. I couldn't stand to have it in my room at night. I was convinced it would just come to life. There was also this toy robot my dad got me once. It made these loud mechanical noises and had flashing red eyes. Yeah, it was supposed to be cool and futuristic, but to me, it's just plain scary. Creepy. Dolls are creepy. When I think of school and fear, the first things that come to mind are all the normal school anxieties. Like worrying about your appearance to impress a bunch of people you don't even like anyway. It's funny how much time and energy went into stressing over clothes and hair and fitting in. There was this constant pressure to look a certain way, to be accepted by peers who, in the grand scheme of things, didn't matter as much as we thought they did. When I think of friends and fear, I always remember something I learned in school. Over half of all solved murders are committed by someone the victim knew, usually a friend or someone who used to be one. And that's hard to forget once you hear it. At first, it sounds kind of scary, like maybe you should be suspicious of everyone you're close to. But really, it's just about proximity. People usually get hurt by someone in their own circle. Not because their friends are secretly out to get them, but because those are the people that are around the most. More time together means more chances for something to go wrong. When I think of my mother and fear, one memory always stands out. My mother had a deep, intense fear. You see, we had this shed out in the back of our yard that we weren't allowed to go anywhere near under any circumstances. We just called it the shed. My mother was always terrified of it for some reason. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. That would be creepy though, right? I'm sorry. I don't know why I said it. I don't know. This whole thing is just awkward for me. I've never talked to any kind of therapist before. Okay, I promise to take it seriously. No more shed jokes. Okay, a real answer. What comes to mind when I think of my mother in fear? Probably death, if I'm being honest. Because my mom died when I was young, and my younger brother died a few years later. It felt like she started a chain reaction of death that had me worried. Anyone I knew could pass away at any time. It was a constant underlying fear I had growing up. It's funny because I was never really scared by horror movies, but there was one thing that did scare me. An episode of The Muppet Show. They did this bit where Dr. Honeydew and Beaker built a machine that you could use to transform a cat into a dog by placing it on a conveyor belt and sending it through. As if that wasn't horrifying enough on its own, a cat got stuck in the machine, and Dr. Honeydew reached in to push it through. When he pulled his arm out, his forearm had turned into a live dog that started attacking him. Meanwhile, a giant tiger attacked Beaker for some reason. They played it for laughs, but dear God, that was a horrifying scenario. I have no idea what they were thinking when they wrote it. It was meant to be funny, but it was nightmare fuel for me. It didn't actually, give me nightmares. That's just an expression. But yeah, that episode did leave a lasting impression. I've never really been afraid to travel. There was this big fear of flying I had before I ever actually got on a plane, though. I built it up in my head as this terrifying experience, but once I was on my first airplane, I was completely fine. If I could, I'd travel all the time. Oh, there's just something so exciting about it. The only scary thing about traveling is paying for it. Oh, that's the real fear, watching your bank account drain as you book flights, hotel rooms, everything else. If it weren't for the cost, I would be on the road or in the air constantly. No, I've never been afraid of any pets. It's not like I have friends with giant pit bulls or anything. I did get a dog about 8 months ago, though. His name is Spock. It's the first time I've had a pet as an adult. I guess I'm afraid of not taking care of him properly. I mean, I might not be the best person to look after an animal, that's all. I have definitely been scared of mythical creatures before. My dad was really into H.P. Lovecraft, so I got exposed to that stuff way earlier than I probably should have. I had a few nightmares about Cthulhu when I was a kid. I never actually saw him in the dreams, but I could feel him. Like something massive was just there, watching me. The only time I ever got scared from comic books was when characters had weird powers that messed up the laws of physics. Mirror Master, one of the Flash's enemies, he was one of the worst. He would trap people in a mirror world where everything is backwards. The trapped people could see our world, but they couldn't escape. And what really freaked me out was just thinking about being stuck in that world. I mean, everything is reversed, and you have to adjust your understanding of reality. Oof. And Doctor Strange, the mirror dimension with folding buildings, is creepy, but it was just too abstract. It's that backwards mirror dimension that scared me because figuring out how it works means undoing everything I know about science. Toys were a huge part of my childhood. I mean, they were my world. I had everything from dolls and action figures to elaborate Lego sets and the latest tech gadgets, thanks to my dad's love for all things nerdy. I also had a teddy bear named Mr. Fuzzy. He was my little buddy, and I took care of him like he was my child. I had a complete change of heart when I was about 12. Just for some reason I lost all interest in toys and almost had a distaste for them. It was probably just a phase where I started wanting to think of myself as an adult. When I think about travel during my childhood, it's mostly about trips with my dad or my mom, but rarely with both together. My dad took me to conventions all the time. My mom, on the other hand, loved taking me to zoos. She was really into animals. I wasn't really into zoos at all, but it was fun getting out of the house with her and driving somewhere. Even the place we went smelled, well, like a zoo. We didn't travel much as a whole family. When I think of TV in my childhood, I mainly remember watching cartoons. My favorites were probably Transformers and Voltron. The annoying thing was I couldn't really talk to my friends about them at school. Back then, there was this ridiculous stigma that girls had to watch girl cartoons like My Little Pony and Gem, and boys had to watch boy cartoons. It's the same archaic mindset that made boys feel like they couldn't own anything pink. So stupid. Things have improved a lot since then, but back in those days, I'd just sit there quietly listening to the boys talk about my favorite shows, wishing I could join the conversation. When I think about my mother and childhood, one memory that always sticks with me is the time I accidentally slammed the car door on her hand. I was really young at the time, but she had to go to the hospital and her pinky finger was messed up permanently. That memory haunts me to this day. When you're a kid, your friend options are basically limited to whoever in your class or whoever lives next to you. That is it. You don't get to be picky. If someone happens to like the same things you do, that's your friend now. Doesn't matter if they're annoying, if you have nothing else in common, shared interests, that's all it took. For me, it was sci-fi and video games. If another kid liked Star Trek or happened to be playing the same video game I was, that was enough. We were friends, at least until the next school year. All right, so I've got this weird fear, right? Like those MC Escher-like things that can't really happen. The endless staircases, the impossible architecture, all that trippy stuff. It freaks me out. I can't handle it. So naturally, this makes it hard for me to finish a lot of games. I'll just be cruising along, having a great time, and then bam, I'm in some bizarre, twisted world where up is down, left is right, I'm out. I'm done. It's like my brain just goes, nope, we are not doing this. I mean, I can deal with zombies, aliens, even the occasional psycho clown, but throw in an endless staircase or a room that defies the laws of physics, I'm out. It's ridiculous, right? But hey, we all have our things. I just wish mine wasn't in so many video games. You know, my dad is actually a bigger gamer than I am. I know you wouldn't expect it because he's older and all that, but he's always been into the latest tech. I grew up watching him get super excited about every new console release and every new gadget that comes out. The funny thing is, we don't even like the same games genres. He's into all these intense shooters and strategy games, while I'm over here like just loving my RPGs and my indie games. But we usually find something we can both stand so we can play together online. Yeah. It's wild how it feels more natural to talk to someone on the headset plugged into a controller than on a phone. Oh, gaming and bears? Yeah, I immediately think of the teddies from Conker's Bad Fur Day. Those brutal, creepy stuffed bears are something. They're not your typical cuddly teddy bears. These guys are armed to the teeth, and they have a real taste for blood. A huge chunk of that game is based on the squirrels' brutal, violent war with the teddies. It's kind of jarring seeing those fuzzy little bears headshotting squirrels with a scoped pistol, or lighting a room full of squirrels on fire with a flamethrower. Yeah, that was not the kind of bear in my dream, though. Actually, hold on a second. Thinking back, there is something. It's just like this feeling, but there was something about the bear in my dream that kind of reminds me of one of those teddies. It was not one of them, but there was something like off about the bear. It's just not a normal bear. It was something about it that was closer to a teddy from Conker's Bad Fur Day. I don't know. I think, I don't know if this is helpful or not. I wonder how the whole Santa mythos works for kids these days. The only toys kids want anymore are video games, but like these days, nobody buys games on discs. They just download them. How does Santa keep busy? I mean, what's he doing all year? I guess when a new console comes out, he's got his work cut out for him, but other years, what's he gonna do? Back in the day, Santa had to lug around actual toys, bikes, action figures, all that stuff, and now it's like, hey, Santa, can you deliver this download code for Among Us? What's he gonna do, send an email? Where's the magic in that? So yeah, it's gotta be weird for the guy. Maybe it's just kicking back, hoping kids start wanting something he can actually put his sleigh in use for again. I don't know. I loved video games as a kid. They were my escape, my way to dive into another world and just forget about everything else. Now, as an adult, I still love video games, but my taste in games has definitely changed. I don't have the time or patience to learn new games all the time. I just find one or two games to settle into and play for years on end. Usually it's whatever my friends are playing. Yeah. That makes me think of growing up in Scranton. I didn't have some horrible school experience, but I got picked on a lot. Usual stuff, quiet kid, weird interests, easy target. It wasn't all bad, but it definitely left a mark. I have a few bullies I'll never forget. Sometimes I wonder if I left a mark on anyone else, like not in a good way. Maybe I said something that hit wrong and stuck. Maybe somebody out there hears my voice when they can't sleep, and not for a reason I'd be proud of. I hope not, but I figure there's probably at least one person who thinks of me as one of the awful people from their past they can't shake. And the worst part is, if they do, I might not even remember them at all.